A millionaire saw an orphan girl sleeping in the greenhouse of his mansion and decided to take her inside the house. When he returned home earlier than expected, he could not hold back his tears when he saw what she had done for his blind brother. The night framed the glass greenhouse in the immense mansion with a chilling silence. The moon dimly illuminated the leaves of the plants carefully tended by Martha Bennett, who always kept the greenhouse impeccable, like a refuge of peace. Michael Hernandez, with his carefully combed grey hair and a tired expression that aged his 45 years, walked absent-mindedly until something stopped him. The faint glow of a lantern in his hands revealed a huddled figure in a corner among pots of tropical plants. It was Emma, a thin, dark-skinned girl with disheveled brown hair who trembled under an old and faded blanket, clinging to a crumpled photograph. Michael frowned, slowly lowering himself as he tried not to startle the child. "Why is such a little girl alone on such a cold night? And right here?" Michael thought, gripping the lantern in his hands. "This can't be right. Something is very wrong." He leaned in a little closer, noticing Emma's lips purple with cold and her closed eyes, as if sleeping in a restless slumber. The photo in her hands showed a smiling woman sitting at a piano. Michael's heart tightened as he imagined the story behind that small piece of paper. He gently touched the girl's shoulder, his deep, low voice sounding with care. "Hey, are you okay? You don't have to be afraid. I'm Michael. You're safe now. Can you hear me?" Doubt and concern mingled in his words. Emma slowly opened her eyes, looking at Michael with a mixture of fear and confusion. Before she could respond, hurried footsteps echoed across the marble floor near the greenhouse, and Martha entered with an alarmed expression. Her face displayed the authority she exercised as a housekeeper, but her brown eyes shone with genuine concern. "Don Michael, what's going on here? Who is this child? We can't just ignore this. We have to call the authorities immediately." Martha crossed her arms, her rigid posture conveying disapproval. Michael raised his hand to interrupt her, his expression firm. "Martha, look at her. Don't you see she's shivering? I'm not going to leave a child like her on the streets. We need to help her before thinking about anything else." Martha hesitated, looking at the girl who now sat up with difficulty, clutching the photo to her chest. Emma whispered, her voice hoarse and weak, but laden with palpable sadness. My mother played piano. She said music is what makes people happy, but she left so long ago." Michael felt a tightness in his chest upon hearing those words. He realized that no matter how much Martha wanted to be practical, there was something special about that girl. "She's just a child, Martha, and you know we have plenty of room here. I'm taking her inside." Martha shook her head, frustration evident in her voice. "Don Michael, you know how Don Ethan will react. He can't stand visitors, let alone strangers. You're going to create a huge problem." Michael sighed, carefully lifting Emma into his arms. "Then so be it, Martha. If Ethan can't understand this, he can write another complaint note. I'm not going to abandon this girl." As Michael made his way through the mansion with Emma in his arms, the warm lights of the corridors revealed the contrast between the coldness of Ethan Hernandez and the compassion that still remained in Michael. Ethan had lived secluded in a separate wing of the mansion since losing his sight years ago. Bitterness had consumed him to such an extent that he rejected any approach, even from his own brother. Martha, walking close behind, muttered softly, almost to herself, "He's always irritated already. When he finds out about this, it will be hell. But maybe it's the hell you two need to go through to change." Michael didn't respond, but the thought echoed in his mind as he gently laid Emma down on the living room sofa. The girl looked even more fragile in the light, but there was something in her honey eyes that showed an unexpected strength. She held the photo so carefully, as if that small piece of paper was her greatest treasure. "You're safe now, Emma. We're going to take care of you. You can trust me," Michael said, his tone carrying both promises and doubts. "But I need to know. Have you been alone for a long time? How did you end up here?" Emma looked at him, her eyes filling with tears, but she swallowed hard before speaking. I was running away. The people at the orphanage. They weren't good to me. I just wanted to find a place where I could remember my mother. And then I saw the greenhouse. It looked so beautiful. I thought it would be like the garden she dreamed of having." Martha pursed her lips, but before she could respond, the sound of a soft knock on a nearby door caught everyone's attention. Martha walked with firm steps to the door and returned holding a note. The paper bore Ethan's unmistakable shaky handwriting. "Michael, this is unacceptable. I demand the girl leave immediately. I don't want strangers in my home." Michael read the words, his eyes darkening. He clenched the note in his hand, taking a deep breath before looking at Emma. "It seems we have a bigger problem than we thought. But I'm not giving up on you, Emma. No matter what Ethan says, you have a place here." Martha crossed her arms again, her tone sarcastic. "So, Don Michael, what will the next step be? Do you plan to confront Ethan and convince him of something he'll never accept? Or will you keep ignoring the notes until he comes knocking on your door?" Michael looked at her, determined. "I don't know yet, Martha, but I'm not letting her go. Emma deserves a chance. And maybe Ethan needs this change as much as we do." Emma watched silently, her eyes reflecting the pain and hope that were beginning to mix. As Michael prepared to face the consequences, he knew that cold night marked the beginning of a battle, not only for the girl, but also for the soul of his own family. Michael held the crumpled note in his hands as he looked at Emma, lying on the couch with heavy breathing and a pale face. He knew Ethan wouldn't give up his crusade to expel the girl, but the child's condition made it impossible to yield. The decision was already made in his heart, but the weight of every choice fell on his shoulders like a growing burden. He turned to Martha, who watched the scene with folded arms, her hard expression softened by concern. "She needs care, Martha. We don't have time for Ethan's complaints now. Call Dr. Torres. This girl is sick and I'm not going to stand idly by." Michael's words came out firm, but his voice trembled slightly with the urgency of the situation. Martha hesitated for a moment, but eventually nodded. A few minutes later, Dr. Evelyn Harper arrived at the mansion, her white coat gleaming under the warm lights of the entrance hall. She was a woman of impeccable bearing, and her green eyes analyzed Emma with speed and precision as she knelt beside the girl. "Michael, what happened here? This child has a high fever. How long has she been like this?" Michael ran his hand through his graying hair, frustrated with himself. "I found her in the greenhouse, Evelyn. She was shivering and looked exhausted. I don't know how long she's been sick, but that's all I know." He looked at Emma with a mixture of guilt and determination. Dr. Torres leaned closer to Emma, examining her breathing and gently palpating her chest. Evelyn's face hardened as she said, "Michael, this is serious. She has all the signs of severe pneumonia. I'll need to medicate her immediately and monitor her closely. If she doesn't improve in 2 days, we'll have to take her to the hospital." Emma, with a hoarse voice, mumbled something almost inaudible but enough to capture Michael's attention. "I don't want to leave. I don't want to go back. Please, don't send me back." The despair in her words struck Michael like a sharp blade. He held Emma's hand, squeezing it gently. "You're not going anywhere, Emma, I promise. No matter what happens, you're safe here." Michael felt a wave of determination grow within him, a strength he didn't know he still possessed. As Evelyn applied the first medical care, Martha returned with a new note from Ethan. She handed it to Michael with a look that mixed exasperation and skepticism. "He won't stop, Don Michael. Each note is more aggressive than the last. Ethan is out of control." Michael read the note silently, his eyes darkening with every word. "You're putting this house at risk because of a stranger. Enough. Get that girl out of here now or suffer the consequences." He crumpled the paper and threw it forcefully onto the table. "Ethan is being irrational, but I won't yield to those threats. Emma needs me now and he will have to deal with it. If Ethan wants a war, it's a war he'll have." Michael's words came out with a firmness that surprised even Martha, who looked at him for a moment before sighing deeply. Evelyn, who until then had kept her focus on Emma, raised her gaze to Michael. "Are you sure about this, Michael? Not just because of Ethan's state, but also your own. You know you can't afford any more stress right now." The concern in her voice was evident, but Michael only shook his head. "Evelyn, there is no more room for easy choices in my life. If this girl can find some peace here, then the effort is worth it. I won't fail her even if I have to face my own brother." Michael spoke with an intensity that reflected both his guilt and his renewed determination. As the care continued, Emma fell asleep, her body finally yielding to exhaustion. Martha arranged the blankets around the girl while muttering, "I hope you know what you're getting into, Don Michael. This situation won't end well if Ethan keeps going like this. He's becoming more and more unpredictable. Michael looked at Martha, his expression laden with worry. I know Ethan is getting worse, but maybe this is the opportunity he needs. Maybe somehow Emma can break down the wall he's built around himself. Or maybe this will only make everything worse. He let out a deep sigh. As the night progressed, more notes arrived, each more threatening than the last. Michael avoided reading them in front of Emma, but Martha knew every word left a mark on his already fragile mood. The tension in the house was palpable, like a stretched cord about to snap. Evelyn, after finishing monitoring Emma, turned to Michael with a serious expression. She needs absolute rest and a peaceful environment. If Ethan keeps causing problems, it could affect her recovery. I understand it's your home, but you need to set clear boundaries. Michael nodded, though he knew Evelyn's words were easier said than done. He looked at Emma, sleeping serenely, and felt a wave of protectiveness grow within him. I won't let Ethan scare her. If he wants a confrontation, he can come to me. I won't back down, not now. However, as Michael's determination grew stronger, Martha entered the room with an alarmed expression. Don Michael, something happened to Don Ethan. He's in his room. Doesn't seem well at all. Michael's heart raced at those words. He knew the battle was just beginning, but Ethan's condition could change everything. Without hesitation, he followed Martha down the dark hallway, where Ethan's bedroom door was ajar, revealing his brother hunched on the floor, gasping and shaking uncontrollably. The mansion was enveloped in an unsettling silence after the commotion in Ethan's room. Michael remained close to the door, watching Martha and Dr. Torres tend to his younger brother, who was in the midst of a panic attack. Ethan's pale, sweat-covered face displayed an anguish Michael hadn't seen in years. He knew this was more than just Emma's arrival. It was a symptom of something Ethan carried within and grew like an untreated wound. Michael shook his head in frustration as he whispered to himself, Ethan, what else are you hiding? We can't go on like this. This has to change. Martha stepped out of the room and stood beside Michael, wiping her hands on her apron, her demeanor heavy. Don Michael. He's more unstable than ever. The girl's presence affected him in a way even I can't understand. You need to decide. Either you take care of him or you take care of her, because the two of them in the same house won't survive like this. Michael raised his gaze to Martha, his voice low but firm. Martha, I won't give up on either of them. Ethan may be broken, but he's not beyond repair. And Emma, that girl needs us more than anything. I just need to find a way to balance it. In the main room, Emma, even with her weakened body, awoke from her restless sleep. The fever still made her thoughts seem confused, but the muffled sound of sobbing coming from another room caught her attention. It was a heavy, deep cry, as if carrying years of accumulated pain. The girl clutched the blanket around her shoulders and tried to get up, ignoring the weakness that made her falter. Who's crying like that? It sounds so sad. Maybe I can help. The thought echoed in her mind, so strong that it propelled her forward. She stumbled to the corner of the room where an old grand piano stood. The surface glistened under the soft morning light that was beginning to stream through the windows. Emma extended her trembling hand to the keys, hesitating for a moment before pressing the first note. The soft sound filled the space, and suddenly, memories of her mother playing the piano flooded over her like a wave. She began to play a simple, almost childlike melody, but one laden with emotion. If music can help someone like it helped my mother, then maybe it will help whoever is crying, thought Emma, as her fingers explored the keys with more confidence, despite the pain in her muscles. I just want to bring some peace, even if for a moment. In the room, Ethan raised his head upon hearing the music. He stood still, his dull eyes fixed on emptiness, as the chords echoed down the corridor. The melody seemed to pierce the darkness he lived in, reaching a place he had tried to ignore for years. Without realizing it, he stood up, groping for the furniture around him in search of the source of the sound. Each step was heavy, as if he were struggling against something invisible trying to hold him back to the solitude of his room. Michael observed everything from afar, hidden behind a column in the hallway. He saw his brother walk slowly towards the living room, Ethan's expression changing with each step. It was as if the music were melting the armor he had built over the years. Michael crossed his arms, his thoughts a mixture of surprise and hope. Ethan, will you finally... Come out of your cocoon. Can this girl do what I could never achieve? In the living room, Emma kept playing, her breathing heavy and broken, but her eyes fixed on the keys. She felt someone approaching and slowly turned her head, finding Ethan standing in the doorway. He seemed lost, his empty eyes instinctively moving towards the music. Emma stopped playing for a moment, but the silence seemed to increase the weight of the atmosphere. With a low and hesitant voice, she whispered, I didn't know anyone was listening. Can I continue, or is it bothering you? Ethan remained silent for a long moment before muttering, with a hoarse and almost inaudible voice, Continue. Don't stop. His words came out like an order, but also like a desperate plea. Emma started playing again, this time with more force, as if Ethan's presence gave her a new energy. Meanwhile, Michael kept watching, feeling a pang of relief at seeing his brother out of his room for the first time in years. This girl. In such a short time she achieved something no one else could. But how long will it last? Michael thought, worried. Martha arrived in the living room at that moment and stopped beside Michael, watching the scene with wide eyes. Don Michael, this is not possible. Don Ethan never leaves his room, not for me, not for anyone. What did this girl do? She spoke in a whisper, as if fearing to break the spell. Michael looked at Martha, his voice laden with emotion. I don't know, Martha, but maybe this is the first of many changes. Maybe there's still hope for him. However, the scene was interrupted by a loud coughing sound from Emma. She abruptly stopped playing, doubling over as she tried to catch her breath. Ethan took a step back as if the moment had been broken, while Michael ran to the girl's side. Emma, are you okay? Talk to me, please. You shouldn't have exerted yourself that much. The concern in his voice was palpable. Evelyn entered the room quickly, having heard the coughing from afar. She examined Emma again, her expression becoming even more grave. Michael, we need to talk. Her condition is more serious than we thought. She needs more intensive care and fast. Michael felt the ground disappear from under his feet upon hearing those words. He looked at Emma, who stared back at him with a weak smile as if trying to reassure him despite her own pain. But Michael's heart knew this was only the beginning of a much bigger battle. The tension in the mansion was palpable after Dr. Torres's grave words about Emma's condition. Michael ran his fingers through his graying hair, trying to contain his growing concern as he walked down the corridor towards the room where the girl was resting. The fever was not subsiding, and upon entering the room he found her delirious, muttering disconnected words. Ethan, despite remaining secluded in his bitterness, was no longer distant from the situation. Michael noticed a different presence in the corridors at night, light but unmistakable footsteps. Ethan was there, closer to Emma than he admitted. Does this mean something? Is he finally allowing himself to feel something other than anger? Michael thought as he adjusted the blankets around the girl. Emma trembled, sweating under the weight of the fever, while her faint voice cut through the silence. Mom, don't go. Don't leave me here alone. The music, it makes me remember you. The words escaped between moans, and Michael felt the weight of each one, as if her pain were an extension of his own. He held the little girl's hand, unable to shake the fear growing in his chest. You'll be okay, Emma. I promise I won't let anything happen to you. Hold on tight, we're here for you, Michael whispered, trying to convey a confidence he didn't fully feel himself. In the hallway, Ethan leaned against the wall, his face hidden in the shadows as he listened to the muffled sounds coming from Emma's room. He didn't understand what made him stay so close, but every word the girl uttered, every melody she played on the piano, seemed to shatter the barriers he had built. Why does this child affect me so much? I should hate this situation. But I can't stay away, Ethan thought, his fists clenched against the fabric of his shirt. The following morning, Michael woke to the soft sound of a piano echoing through the mansion. He silently descended the stairs, following the melody to the main hall. To his surprise, he found Ethan seated at the piano, his fingers gliding across the keys with a skill he hadn't seen in years. The music was delicate, almost melancholic, as if it carried all the feelings Ethan had never been able to express in words. Ethan, you're playing, said Michael, his voice low but full of emotion. He remained in the entryway, not wanting to interrupt the rare moment but unable to hide his surprise. Ethan stopped abruptly, his hands hovering over the keys. He didn't turn to face Michael, but his voice echoed through the room. This house is different. I don't know what's happening to me. Maybe it's this girl. She brought something back, something I thought was lost. Michael took a few steps closer, hesitating before replying. Ethan, you've been hiding for so long. Maybe this is the beginning of something new for you. Emma isn't here to take anything from you. She just wants a place to belong. Ethan remained silent for a long moment, before rising from the bench and stepping away from the piano. It's not that simple, Michael. You don't understand what I've lost, what I carry. But maybe you're right. Maybe this girl has something to say, even if she doesn't know it. Later, Martha, who had the habit of checking the rooms in the house during the early hours, entered Ethan's study to tidy the scattered papers on the desk. To her surprise, she found a partially filled sheet with Ethan's shaky handwriting. It was a letter, and even without reading the content, Martha knew this was something rare, something she hadn't seen in years. Ethan writing a letter. And to Emma? What could he possibly be trying to say? Martha thought, carefully putting the sheet back in its place. At dawn, Martha found Michael in the living room and shared her discovery. Don, Michael, I saw something last night that left me perplexed. Ethan is writing a letter to Emma. He's changing, in a way I never thought possible. Michael raised his eyebrows, surprised. Ethan, writing? And to Emma? He barely even speaks to anyone. What could he possibly want to say to her? Michael's tone was a mixture of curiosity and hope. Martha sighed, leaning slightly towards him. Don, Michael, maybe it's his way of dealing with all of this, but whatever it is, I think he's reaching out to her, even if indirectly. A few hours later, Michael found Ethan sitting in the hallway near Emma's room. He was motionless, his dull eyes turned towards the door, as if he could see through it. Michael stopped a few steps away, hesitating to break the silence. Ethan sensed his presence but didn't move. You're here for her, aren't you? Michael asked, his voice low but laden with emotion. You want to see her, but you're afraid to go in. Why, Ethan? Why don't you take that step? Ethan sighed deeply, finally breaking the silence. I want to see her, Michael, but in my own way. Not with the eyes I've lost, but with something that still remains in me. His words carried a weight Michael couldn't ignore. Ethan's unexpected request left Michael speechless for a moment. He knew something profound was shifting within his brother, but he also knew this journey was just beginning. As Martha watched from afar, the tension in the mansion seemed to reach a new peak, making it clear that the bonds between Ethan and Emma were only starting to form. The tension still hung in the hallway, where Ethan had just made his request. Michael, standing before him, tried to process the meaning behind his words. Ethan wanted to see Emma in his own way, something Michael knew went beyond just a physical gesture. There was a deep longing there, a first step towards a connection Ethan had long avoided. Michael nodded silently, realizing this moment could be more important than he had ever imagined. Martha, who had been watching from a distance, approached cautiously, folding her arms as she looked at Ethan. Are you sure about this, Don Ethan? Touching her face may seem simple, but it means opening a door. Are you prepared for that? Martha's voice was low, almost as if she feared breaking the delicacy of the moment. Ethan raised his head slightly, his expression serious. Martha, do you think I would ask for this if it weren't important to me? I don't have many ways to connect with someone now. Let me do this my way. His words carried a weight Martha understood, even if she didn't fully agree. Inside the room, Emma was awake, her tired eyes alert. The fever seemed to have given her a brief respite, and she was looking out the window, though she couldn't see much beyond the slightly parted curtains. Michael entered, followed by Ethan, who walked with hesitant steps. He stopped a few meters from the bed, his face turned towards Emma. Michael cleared his throat, trying to break the silence. Emma, Ethan wants to get to know you. In a different way. He would like to touch your face. Is that okay with you? Michael's voice was careful, trying to ensure the girl didn't feel pressured. Emma frowned for a moment, but then she smiled slightly, though with effort. If this is important to him, all right. I don't mind. Sometimes we need to find new ways to get to know people. The maturity in her response surprised Michael, who felt an inexplicable warmth in his chest. Ethan took a few more steps, his trembling hands reaching out slightly towards the bed. He knelt beside her with an expression that mixed nervousness and determination. With a hoarse voice but full of sincerity, he said, "I don't want to scare you, Emma, but I need to understand who you are. Just trust me, even if only for a moment." Emma tilted her head slightly forward, allowing Ethan to touch her skin. His fingers were firm but careful, exploring the soft lines of her face. Ethan lingered a little longer on her eyes and the curve of her lips, as if trying to build a mental image. "You are so delicate, but there's strength here. I can feel it," Ethan said, his voice almost a whisper. Michael watched the scene in silence, but what caught his attention the most was the shy smile that appeared on Ethan's lips. It was something Michael hadn't seen in years, and he felt a tightness in his chest, as if he were witnessing a small but significant miracle. "Ethan, you're smiling," Michael thought, not knowing if he was speaking to himself or aloud. Emma, still with her eyes closed, spoke in a soft voice. "My mother always said that music could heal even the most broken hearts. She played the piano every night. After she was gone, I never heard anything so beautiful. Until now." Emma's words were full of nostalgia, but also hope, as if she found solace in Ethan's presence. Ethan slowly pulled his hands back, but remained kneeling beside her. "Your mother sounds like she was an amazing woman. You're lucky to have those memories of her. I've lost so much of what mattered to me, but maybe there's a way to get some of that back," he said, his voice laden with a raw emotion Michael hadn't heard in years. The moment was interrupted by Dr. Torres entering, who looked at the scene with an expression of curiosity and caution. She approached Emma's bed, checking her vital signs as she spoke to Michael. "The fever is still high, but there's something I'd like to discuss with you about Ethan," Evelyn said, her voice low but firm. Michael frowned, following Evelyn out of the room. In the hallway, she explained, "I've been studying new experimental treatments for cases like Ethan's. It's not a cure, but it may help with sensory and emotional perception, but he would need to be willing. Do you think he would agree?" Michael took a deep breath, thinking about the changes beginning to emerge in Ethan. "Dr. Torres, if there's a chance this could help him, I think now is the right time. He's already taken the first steps. I just hope he sees it as an opportunity, not a burden." Meanwhile, in the room, Martha discreetly entered and saw Ethan seated beside Emma's bed. She carried a tray with medication and a glass of water, but hesitated upon hearing Ethan whisper something to the girl. "Emma, thank you for letting me feel who you are. Maybe I can learn more from you than I thought." Martha set the tray on the nightstand and looked at Ethan with a slight smile. "Well done, Ethan. Who would have thought you still had that in you? Seems the little girl has accomplished something none of us could in years." Ethan stood, facing Martha as best he could. "Make no mistake, Martha, this does not mean I'm ready to go back to the life I left, but perhaps I am ready to take small steps." The hopeful mood that was starting to form was interrupted later that night when Emma began coughing violently in her sleep. Michael was urgently summoned by Martha, and Dr. Torres was woken to assess the situation. Michael held Emma in his arms as her fever spiked again, his heart racing with growing fear. "Emma, stay with me, don't give up now, please," he said, his voice thick with concern. Dr. Torres adjusted the medications, but her expression was grave. "Michael, we need to be prepared for the worst. She's fighting, but the next few hours will be crucial. Stay close to her, because she'll need all the strength she can muster," Evelyn said, leaving the tension in the air like an uncertain promise of what was to come. The tension in the mansion had not eased since Emma's relapse. Michael remained by the girl's bedside, while Ethan silently sat near the doorway, his expression somber and distant. His brother's presence there was both a comfort and an unease for Michael. He knew something was shifting within Ethan, but he also sensed the shadow of something Ethan still could not share. Dr. Torres, ever vigilant, monitored Emma constantly, but it was impossible not to notice the glances she cast toward Ethan. Something seemed to deeply trouble her. "Ethan," Michael said with concern, approaching him, "you don't seem well. I know Emma's in a delicate situation, but perhaps you need attention too. Is there something you're not telling me?" Ethan stood, avoiding Michael's gaze, and answered in a hoarse voice, "It's not about me, Michael. All that matters now is Emma. She's fighting, and I'm not going to take the focus away from her." But his tense posture betrayed more than he was willing to admit. Meanwhile, Emma began to recover slowly. Still weak, but with a sparkle in her eyes, Michael hadn't seen in days. She insisted on leaving her bed to sit at the piano. Ethan, as if drawn by an invisible force, followed her into the room, staying close but not interfering. When Emma began to play a gentle melody, she looked at Ethan with a shy smile. "You said you wanted to learn about music, Ethan," Emma said in her delicate but determined voice. "Music helped me find a little piece of my mother, even when she's no longer here. Maybe it can help you find something you've lost too." Ethan hesitated but sat beside her on the piano bench. His trembling fingers touched the keys uncertainly as Emma patiently showed him the sequence of notes. Michael watched from a distance, a mix of awe and hope. "I never thought I'd see Ethan like this again. Maybe Emma really is the miracle we've been waiting for," Michael thought, feeling a tightness in his chest. The next day, Michael was in the mansion's attic, searching for old blankets for Emma's recovery, when he found a dusty box full of photographs. He began to rummage through the contents and paused when he found an image of Ethan and himself as children, embracing in front of a piano. Their joyful expressions seemed to belong to another life, something almost impossible to connect to the present. Michael gripped the photo tightly, feeling a wave of nostalgia. "Ethan, why did you let this part of yourself die? I feel like I've lost not only a brother, but also the time we'll never get back," Michael murmured, looking at the photo sadly. Later, Martha, with her usual care, brought tea for Ethan and Emma, who were together at the piano. She watched Ethan's shy progress, but also noticed the concern he tried to hide. When she had a chance to be alone with Michael, Martha revealed something that seemed to weigh on her conscience. "Don Michael, I need to say something." When Ethan learned of Emma's condition, he cried. It wasn't something small. It was as if years of pain had accumulated and exploded in that moment. "He may not admit it, but this girl has deeply affected him," Martha said, her voice serious but filled with compassion. Michael looked at Martha, his expression grave but full of understanding. "That doesn't surprise me, Martha. Ethan has always had a bigger heart than he wanted to admit. Perhaps Emma has managed to reach a place in him that no one else has." As the connections between Emma and Ethan deepened, Dr. Torres decided to conduct more detailed examinations on Ethan. His behavior in recent days raised suspicions she could not ignore. When the results came in, she called Michael for a private conversation. Her expression was grave, and Michael knew the news would not be good. "Michael, I found something concerning in Ethan's tests. He has a serious condition, likely neglected for years. He needs urgent surgery or the consequences will be irreversible," Evelyn said, her voice low but firm. Michael felt as if the ground had disappeared from under his feet. He looked at Evelyn, trying to process the gravity of the situation. "Surgery? Evelyn, why did he never say anything? How could he hide this for so long?" His voice was a mixture of anger and concern. "Ethan has always been reserved, Michael. Perhaps he thought it didn't matter, or that there was no solution. But now we have a chance. The question is, will he be willing to accept help?" Evelyn said, placing the responsibility in Michael's hands. Michael knew the next step would be the most difficult. He needed to convince Ethan to face something his own brother seemed to have buried in the past. As he walked down the corridor towards Ethan's room, Michael felt the weight of all the choices that were about to be made. The connections being created in the mansion could be the key to saving not only Emma, but also Ethan, and he couldn't fail. The tension in the mansion was almost palpable after Michael's conversation with Dr. Torres. He knew that convincing Ethan to face the truth about his health would be a monumental challenge, but there was no alternative. Michael walked down the corridor to his brother's room, where he found Ethan seated in the armchair, his hands resting on his knees and a distant expression on his face. It was as if he already knew what was coming. Michael stopped at the entrance, took a deep breath and broke the silence. "Ethan, we need to talk. Dr. Torres found something in your tests and you need surgery." "There's no other way," Michael said, trying to keep his voice steady but feeling the weight of each word. Ethan raised his head slightly, though he didn't look at him. He remained silent for a few moments before responding in a dry voice. "Michael, I've lived like this for so long. What makes you think I want to change now? I don't want this surgery. I don't need it." Michael took a few steps into the room, feeling his frustration growing. "Ethan, this is not something you can ignore. Your life is at risk, and I'm not just going to watch while you destroy yourself. You have a chance to change things, to have a better life." Ethan laughed bitterly, shaking his head. "A better life? Michael, I've already lost everything that mattered. To me, there's no difference between continuing like this or not. You're fighting for something I don't want." Ethan's response left Michael speechless for a moment. He knew his brother was trapped in a cycle of bitterness and pain, but he didn't expect such resistance. Meanwhile, Emma, who had overheard part of the conversation from the hallway, entered the room with hesitant steps. She was still weak, but her determination was evident. "Ethan, why don't you want to try? Music gave me strength when everything seemed lost. Maybe this surgery is like music for you, a new beginning even if you can't see it yet," Emma said, her voice delicate but full of emotion. Ethan looked in her direction, his lips pursed in a mixture of surprise and discomfort. "You don't understand, Emma. It's not that simple. Some things are broken in a way that can't be fixed." Emma slowly approached and sat on the arm of the chair. She held Ethan's hand firmly, even though it trembled slightly. "I know you think you're broken, but sometimes it's just a matter of finding the right piece to make everything work again. And I think that piece might be closer than you think." Ethan didn't respond, but his expression softened slightly, as if Emma's words had touched something inside him. Later that night, Emma and Ethan spent hours at the piano, playing together awkwardly but with a growing connection. Michael, who was going to the room to turn off the lights, found the two of them asleep, with Emma leaning on Ethan's arm and him leaning over the piano. The sight made Michael pause and reflect on how much things had changed in such a short time. Ethan would never have let anyone get that close before. Emma brought something out in him that I thought was lost forever. But will it be enough to make him change his mind? Michael thought, watching the scene with a mixture of relief and concern. The next morning, Dr. Torres met with Michael and Ethan to discuss the surgery. She was direct, without beating around the bush, and her serious expression made it clear she wasn't open to negotiations. "Ethan, I understand you're hesitant, but this surgery is not optional. If you keep putting it off, the consequences will be severe. We can't wait any longer." Ethan crossed his arms, his expression hardening again. "Dr. Torres, I understand what you're saying, but the decision is mine, and I'm not ready for this. I don't even know if I'll ever be," Michael intervened, his frustration evident in his voice. "Ethan, this is not just about you. There are people here who care about you, who aren't ready to lose you. Don't you see that you're hurting everyone around you with this stubbornness?" Ethan stood up abruptly, his hands clenched. "I didn't ask for anyone to care about me, Michael. I've lived for years without relying on anyone, and I can keep doing that. You're just trying to force me into something I don't want." The atmosphere became tense, and Dr. Torres, sensing that emotions were running high, intervened. "Ethan, think of this not as an obligation, but as an opportunity. Maybe you can't see it now, but this surgery could be the first step towards something bigger. The choice is still yours, but there's not much time." That night, as the mansion fell silent, Ethan sat alone at the piano playing scattered notes as if trying to organize his thoughts. Emma entered the room discreetly and sat beside him without saying a word. After a few minutes, she finally broke the silence. "Ethan, you said some things are broken and can't be fixed. I understand how you feel, but maybe it's not about fixing. Maybe it's about learning to live with what we are and finding something that makes us want to keep going," Emma said, her voice almost a whisper. Ethan sighed, leaning forward as his hands rested on the keys. "Emma, you make it sound so simple, but maybe you're right. Maybe I'm just afraid to try." The next morning, Ethan called Michael and Dr. Torres for a conversation. His expression was still serious, but there was a determination that hadn't been there before. "I'll have the surgery," he said, before pausing, his gaze fixed on the void. "But with one condition. I need this to be on my terms." The enigmatic tone of Ethan left Michael and Dr. Torres intrigued. Michael frowned, crossing his arms. "Ethan, what are you talking about? What condition is that?" Ethan didn't answer immediately, but there was something in his posture that made it clear he was about to change the course of everything. The silence that hung in the air was enough to leave everyone in anticipation of what would follow. The morning was dawning peacefully at the mansion, but the tension that hung over the corridors was almost suffocating. Michael, Martha, and Dr. Torres anxiously awaited Ethan's revelation about his mysterious condition for accepting the surgery. Ethan was sitting in the armchair, his face turned toward Michael, although his dull eyes did not convey his inner determination. He took a deep breath before speaking, the words coming out laden with emotion and weight. "Michael, I'll only accept the surgery on one condition," said Ethan, his voice firm but full of subtext. "You need to adopt Emma." "I don't want her to go back to the orphanage. I don't want her to be left alone again. If I'm going to risk my life, I want to know that hers will have a better future." Michael was paralyzed for a moment, processing what he had just heard. He ran his hand through his graying hair, looking at Ethan with a mixture of surprise and emotion. "Ethan, you're asking me to take on a huge responsibility. Not that I haven't thought about it, but why is this so important to you?" Ethan leaned forward slightly, the expression on his face softening. "Emma made me see something I thought I had lost. She reminded me what it means to fight for something, for someone. I want her to have a chance, Michael, because if she can change something in me, she can change the world." Ethan's response left Michael speechless. He looked to Martha and Dr. Torres for support, but both seemed equally touched by Ethan's words. Emma, who had been listening from the doorway unseen, entered the room hesitantly, her eyes brimming with tears. "Ethan, do you really want me to stay, even with all the problems I brought to you?" Ethan turned his face toward her voice, his posture relaxing a little. "Emma, you didn't bring problems, you brought music. A music I didn't know still existed, so yes, I want you to stay. But that depends on Michael." Michael felt an unexpected pressure on his shoulders, but also a warmth he hadn't felt in years. He smiled slightly, nodding. "Emma, you are already part of this family, and if that's what Ethan needs to accept the surgery, then it's decided. So you'll stay here as my daughter." Emma's eyes filled with tears, and she ran to hug Michael, who enveloped her in a tight embrace. Ethan remained motionless, but an almost imperceptible smile formed on his lips. Martha, watching the scene closely, discreetly wiped away a tear before breaking the silence. "Don Michael, it seems this house is finally beginning to feel what it means to be a family again." Later that day, Emma asked to show something to Ethan. She led him to the piano and placed a photo album on the piece of furniture. Carefully, she opened it to a page where there was an image of a woman sitting at the piano. Ethan recognized the sound of the paper being turned and asked, "What is this, Emma?" "It's my mother. She was a pianist and played in various performances before I was born. I wanted to show you because I think you might have known her work," Emma said, a hopeful glimmer in her eyes. Ethan ran his hand over the photo as if trying to absorb the energy contained in that piece of paper. After a few seconds, he muttered, his voice choked, "I know her. She was my favorite pianist. I used to listen to her performances before the accident. Her music touched me in a way nothing else could." The silence that followed was full of emotion as Emma looked at Ethan with a new admiration. "Ethan, maybe her music can still reach you in some way. Maybe, if you listen more, you can find something you've lost." The connection between the two seemed to deepen with every word, and Michael, watching from afar, noticed a slow but undeniable transformation in his brother. Ethan, who had been trapped in his pain and isolation, was now beginning to open doors to something more. "Ethan is changing. Emma has managed to do something I thought was impossible." "Maybe there is still hope," thought Michael with a pang of relief. Later that night, Martha found Ethan walking alone down the hallway. He was leaning against the walls, but his determination was evident. Martha quickly approached with outstretched hands to help, but Ethan raised his hand to stop her. "I need to do this on my own, Martha. I can't rely on everyone forever." Martha stepped back, but watched carefully as Ethan took slow but firm steps toward the piano in the living room. "Don Ethan, you're putting in more effort than ever. It seems Emma has brought something not even the best music alone could," she said with a satisfied smile. At the end of the night, Dr. Torres called everyone together to discuss the next steps. Her expression was serious, and Michael knew something important was coming. "Ethan, the surgery is viable, but we need to be realistic. There is only a 30% chance of success. It's a difficult decision, but you need to be prepared for any outcome." The weight of Dr. Torres's words fell on everyone in the room, and Ethan remained silent for a long moment before responding. "I accept the risks. I'm not doing this for myself, but for Emma. and what she has brought into my life. If there's a 30% chance of success, then that's what I'll focus on. The atmosphere in the mansion became a mix of hope and apprehension as everyone awaited the next steps. Time seemed to be running against them, but Ethan's determination showed he was ready to face the challenge, regardless of the outcome. The air in the mansion seemed charged with a mixture of tension and expectation. After Dr. Torres's revelation about the risks of the surgery, everyone knew the next few days would be crucial. Michael was dedicated to organizing Emma's adoption papers, determined to keep the promise he had made to Ethan. Meanwhile, Emma spent hours at the piano, working on a special composition. Even weak, she insisted on playing, believing that the music would be the perfect gift for Ethan before the surgery. Ethan, for his part, began venturing into the main part of the house, a change that everyone noticed but no one commented on directly. Emma was sitting at the piano, her small fingers sliding over the keys in a hesitant but determined rhythm. She looked at Michael, who was watching from afar with a shy smile. "I'm composing something for Ethan. I want him to feel that no matter what happens, his music is still alive." Michael approached and placed a hand on her shoulder. "Emma, that's beautiful. I'm sure Ethan will be touched. You're giving him something no one else could, a reason to keep fighting." Michael's voice was low but charged with emotion. While Emma worked on her music, Michael spent hours in the office filling out the necessary papers for the adoption. The decision to make Emma his daughter filled him with a silent pride, but also an unexpected nervousness. He knew he was taking on an enormous responsibility, but every time he saw the spark in her eyes, he was sure it was the right choice. Emma is already part of this family, but making her officially my daughter will be the greatest gift I can give her and myself, thought Michael as he signed another document. Ethan, now more present in the house, walked with cautious steps down the sunlit corridors. He still used the walls as a guide, but there was something different about his posture. He seemed less withdrawn, more willing to participate in the small interactions around him. Martha, who found him in the main room, couldn't help but smile when she saw him near the piano. "Don Ethan, you're changing. I don't remember the last time I saw you here during the day." "It seems like Emma and Michael have accomplished something that no one else has," said Martha, as she adjusted a pillow on the couch. Ethan touched the back of the nearby chair, his fingers sliding over the fabric. "I don't know if it's exactly a change, Martha. Maybe it's more of an adjustment. But I have to admit, I no longer feel trapped in the same place as before." Meanwhile, Dr. Torres was working on the preparations for the surgery. She was coordinating with the medical team, checking equipment and reviewing procedures, making sure everything would be ready for the big day. Her concern was visible, but her determination was unwavering. During a break, she found Michael in the office and decided to share her concerns. "Michael, I know Ethan has agreed to the surgery, but I want you to be prepared for any outcome. We cannot ignore the risks. The team is ready, but Ethan will need much more than just the surgery to fully recover," said Evelyn, her voice firm but gentle. Michael nodded, leaning his elbows on the table. "I understand, Dr. Torres, but he's already come so far, and it's all thanks to Emma. I believe that with her by his side, he'll find strengths he didn't even know he had." On the night before the surgery, Emma called Ethan to listen to the music she had prepared. Ethan, hesitant, sat beside her on the piano bench. The melody was simple but filled with emotion, each note seeming to echo a message of hope. Ethan remained still for a moment after the end of the music, before speaking. "Emma, this is incredible. You managed to put into music something I didn't even know I was feeling. Thank you," said Ethan, his voice choked but sincere. He gently touched her shoulder, as if that gesture meant more than any words. Later that night, Michael found the two of them asleep at the piano, Emma's head resting on Ethan's arm and him leaning back with a peaceful expression. Michael paused at the doorway, feeling a tightness in his chest at the sight. "I never thought I'd see Ethan like this again. This girl didn't just save him but brought something to all of us," thought Michael, smiling. As the day of the surgery approached, Ethan's anxiety began to rise. On the eve, he was found by Martha in the hallway, breathing heavily, his fists clenched by his sides. She ran up to him, holding him by the arms. "Don Ethan, what's happening? You're having an anxiety attack. You need to calm down." Ethan shook his head, trying to compose himself, but his voice came out broken. "Martha, what if this doesn't work out? What if all of this is in vain? I don't know if I can deal with this uncertainty." Martha looked at him firmly, grasping his shoulders. "Don Ethan, you've come this far because you found something worth fighting for. Trust yourself and the people around you. Now is not the time to give up." Ethan took a deep breath, trying to calm down, but the tension in the air was palpable. As the house prepared for the big day, everyone knew that the next 24 hours would be crucial, both for Ethan and for the family they were building together. The tension that had built up during the day reached its peak as night fell over the mansion. Ethan, still shaken by the anxiety attack, took refuge in his thoughts on the living room couch, his restless hands resting on his knees. He could hear the notes of the piano echoing through the house, a continuous melody filling the silence like a desperate attempt to keep his mind away from the fears that consumed him. Emma, though frail, played without interruption, her gaze fixed on the keys, determined to help Ethan find some peace. "Ethan needs this more than I need rest," thought Emma, as her fingers glided over the keys with precision and smoothness. "Music is all I can offer now, but I hope it's enough." Michael, who watched Emma from the hallway, couldn't contain the tightness in his chest at seeing the girl's dedication. He knew those hours would be the hardest for Ethan and for everyone around him. Entering the office in search of something to distract him, Michael ended up finding a partially open drawer in Ethan's desk. Inside it, there was a stack of carefully folded letters, each addressed to one of the members of the house. He picked up the first one, which bore his own name. "If you're reading this, Michael, it means something went wrong," the first line said. Michael stopped reading for a moment, feeling the weight of those words. He gripped the paper tightly before continuing. "I want you to know that, despite everything, I'm grateful for what you've done for me. You brought Emma into my life, and that's already worth more than anything else. If I'm not here to see the future, take care of her for me. She needs you." Michael sat in the armchair, holding the letter as if it were a fragment of the brother he feared losing. His eyes filled with tears as he muttered to himself, "Ethan, you still don't realize how much you've already accomplished. I won't let you give up now. No matter what happens, we'll face this together." In the living room, Martha worked silently, preparing Ethan's room to receive him after the surgery. She had chosen photos of moments Ethan had shared with Emma in recent weeks, images that showed the rare and sincere smile he had rediscovered. As she hung one of the photos on the wall, Martha spoke softly to herself. "Ethan, you found something worth fighting for. Now you just need to believe you can keep fighting for it." As the mansion kept an almost ritualistic pace, Dr. Torres performed the final exams on Ethan in the makeshift office. The serious expression on her face reflected the gravity of the moment, but also the confidence of someone who had prepared for this day. "Ethan, I want you to know that we've done everything to minimize the risks. Now we need your part, to enter the operating room with a clear mind and an open heart," Evelyn said as she adjusted the equipment. Ethan, sitting on the stretcher, crossed his arms, his expression closed. "Dr. Torres, don't worry about me. I'm ready, or as ready as I can be. Just take care of Emma if something goes wrong. She deserves so much more than I've been able to offer so far." Dr. Torres nodded, recognizing that there were no more words that could completely alleviate the weight Ethan carried. "You've already done so much, Ethan. The rest is in our hands now." Later that night, Michael returned to the living room where he found Emma still playing the piano. He approached, putting his hand on her shoulder. "Emma, you need to rest. Tomorrow will be a long day, and Ethan will need you more than ever." Emma shook her head, refusing to stop. "Michael, I can't. Ethan needs to hear this. It's the only way I know to show him that everything will be okay." Her voice was soft but laden with determination. Michael sighed, realizing he couldn't convince her. He sat on the couch, watching Emma's fingers glide over the keys, each note echoing as a reminder of how much that little girl had changed the dynamics of the house. "You have more strength than you realize, Emma. Never let anyone tell you otherwise," Michael thought as a discreet smile appeared on his lips. Around midnight, Ethan asked to speak with Michael alone. Martha, who was in the kitchen, sensed the seriousness in Ethan's request and gave the brothers some space. Ethan was sitting in the armchair in the office, his hands intertwined as Michael entered. He raised his head slightly, indicating he was ready to speak. "Michael, I need you to promise me something," Ethan said, his voice low but firm. If something goes wrong tomorrow, I want you to continue with everything that started here. Emma needs you, and more than that, you need her. Don't let any of this get lost. Michael approached, sitting in the chair beside him. Ethan, nothing will go wrong. You'll come out of this surgery and see what you've helped build. But if it gives you peace, I promise, I'll take care of her and continue what we started together. The silence that followed was full of meaning. Ethan nodded, as if finally finding some relief in his brother's words. As the mansion sank into an unsettling silence, everyone knew that the next day would be a turning point, and no one was fully prepared for what was to come. The morning light filtered through the mansion's windows, casting soft shadows over the silent hallways. Michael and Ethan were still in the office, sitting side by side, in a silence that seemed to contain years of unspoken words. The air carried the weight of everything they had been through, and Michael could sense that Ethan was about to say something important. Ethan raised his head, his dull eyes turned toward his brother, and finally broke the silence. Michael, before all this, I need to tell you something I've been keeping for years, Ethan began, his voice low but firm. I know I spent a lot of time away, trapped in my own pain, and let you carry the weight of everything alone. I should have been by your side, but I chose to isolate myself. I want to ask your forgiveness for that. Michael leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees, looking at the floor as he processed his brother's words. He took a deep breath before responding, his voice choked. Ethan, I never blamed you. I knew you were dealing with your pain the best way you could. But hearing this from you now, it means more than you can imagine. Outside the office, Emma was listening to the conversation hidden behind the door. Ethan's words touched her deeply, and she began to cry silently. To her, those two men, so different, were the only family she knew, and seeing them reconnecting filled her with hope and emotion. They're finding a way to be brothers again. That's all I could ask for, thought Emma, as she wiped away the tears with her small hands. While Martha was at the hospital, making sure Ethan's room was perfect to receive him after the surgery. She had brought some photos from the mansion and a picture frame with an image of Ethan and Emma together at the piano. As she adjusted the sheets on the bed, she murmured to herself, Ethan, you've been away for so long, but now you're getting closer. I hope this is the beginning of something new for all of us. Back at the mansion, Dr. Torres arrived to pick up Ethan and begin the preparations for the surgery. She greeted Michael with a nod and placed a firm hand on Ethan's shoulder. Ethan, the time has come. I know you're nervous, but trust us. We're ready to take care of you. Ethan nodded slowly, rising with Michael's help. Dr. Torres, I trust you. Just make sure, no matter what happens, Emma and Michael are all right. That's what's most important to me. At the hospital, the environment was carefully prepared for the surgery. Dr. Torres was speaking with her team, reviewing every detail of the procedure. The tension in the air was almost palpable, but there was a sense of determination in everyone present. Michael, sitting by Ethan's side as they waited for it to begin, held his brother's hand for a moment. Ethan, you're going to make it through this. There's no doubt in my mind, and when you do, we'll rebuild everything. Together, like it should have been from the start, Michael said, his voice firm but laden with emotion. Ethan gave Michael's hand a light squeeze, a faint smile appearing on his lips. Thank you, Michael, for never giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself. Let's do this together. While Ethan was being taken to the operating room, Michael felt a tightness in his chest that he couldn't ignore. He looked at Dr. Torres, who gave him a confident nod before entering the operating room. Martha, who was standing next to Michael, placed a hand on his arm. Don Michael, he's in good hands. Dr. Torres is the best at what she does. Now we just need to have faith, Martha said, her voice firm but gentle. Inside the operating room, Dr. Torres began the procedures with her team, each movement calculated and precise. The machines monitored Ethan's vital signs as the tension in the air increased. Torres knew this was a delicate surgery, and every second counted. Ethan, you've come so far, now it's our turn to make this work, Torres thought as she gave the next instructions. Outside, Emma held the photo frame that Martha had brought, looking at the image of Ethan and her together. Michael noticed the distant look on the girl's face and knelt down beside her. Emma, Ethan is fighting for us. And no matter what happens, he knows we're his family now. Emma nodded, clutching the photo frame to her chest. I know Michael. I just want him to know how much he means to me. He's not just Ethan, he's my inspiration. He showed me that we can always find strength, even in the darkness. Inside the operating room, the pace suddenly changed when an alarm went off. Dr. Torres and her team reacted immediately, adjusting the equipment and assessing the situation. There was a complication, and the environment became even more tense. Torres, keeping calm, gave quick and precise instructions. "We need to stabilize him now. We can't lose control," she said, as her team worked to resolve the issue. In the hallway, Michael and Martha noticed the change in atmosphere. Michael stood up, pacing back and forth as his heart raced. Something's wrong. Why did it suddenly get so quiet? Michael thought, feeling fear take over. He looked at Martha, who avoided his gaze, but her expression reflected the same concern. The mansion, which had once harbored years of silence and distance, now became the point of connection for a new family. But at that moment, all ties and promises depended on what would happen inside the operating room, and no one knew for sure how that chapter would end. Michael gave a small smile, but his eyes were still somber. "Martha, I hope you're right, because I don't know if I can handle another loss. Not now, not after everything that's happened." In the operating room, Dr. Torres managed to stabilize the situation, but she knew the critical moment had not yet passed. She took a deep breath before giving the next instructions to the team. "Let's continue calmly. We need to ensure that every step is perfect. We cannot make any mistakes now." In the chapel, Emma continued playing, tears streaming down her face as she immersed herself in the music. Each note seemed like a prayer, a silent plea for Ethan to return to them. She closed her eyes, allowing the music to be her voice at a time when words seemed insufficient. Michael, feeling suffocated, stood up and walked to the chapel, drawn by the sound of the music. Upon entering, he stopped at the door, watching Emma play with an intensity he had never seen before. He felt a tightness in his chest, but also a spark of hope as he listened to the melody. "Emma, your music is beautiful. Ethan would be proud of you," Michael said, approaching and placing a hand on her shoulder. "Keep playing, maybe he can feel it, wherever he is now." Soon after, the sound of firm footsteps echoed down the hallway. Dr. Torres emerged from the operating room, her expression unreadable. She removed her surgical mask and walked slowly towards Michael and Emma, who had returned to the waiting room. Michael stood up immediately, his heart racing. "How is he, Dr. Torres? Please tell me everything went well," Michael asked, his voice heavy with urgency and fear. Torres's expression remained serious as she hesitated before answering, leaving everyone trapped in the uncertainty of the moment. The sound of monitors echoed through the silent room, a constant reminder that Ethan was finally recovering from surgery. Michael was sitting beside his brother's bed, his eyes fixed on Ethan's face, searching for any sign that he was waking up. Emma remained on the other side of the bed, clutching Ethan's hand, as if that contact alone would be enough to bring him back. The atmosphere was charged with tension, but also a silent hope that seemed to fill the space between them. "He's going to wake up, Michael. I know he will. Ethan has never given up, and now he has even more reasons to fight. We just need to be patient and believe," said Emma, her voice trembling but filled with determination. She squeezed Ethan's hand tightly, as if she wanted to transmit to him all the energy she had. Michael sighed deeply, running his hands over his face, trying to hide his own anxiety. "I know, Emma, but waiting is always the hardest part. Seeing my brother like this, so fragile, reminds me of everything he's been through, everything we've been through. I just hope he knows he's not alone anymore." A slight movement in Ethan's hand made Emma hold her breath. She looked at Michael, her eyes wide open as she pointed to her brother's hand. "Michael, he's moving. He can hear us, I'm sure of it. Ethan, we're here with you. Please wake up." Ethan moved his fingers again, and his eyes began to open slowly. He blinked a few times, disoriented, as if trying to understand where he was. His breathing was irregular, but he seemed to be striving to connect with his surroundings. Dr. Torres quickly entered the room, approaching the bed calmly and professionally. "Ethan, you're safe. You're in the hospital, and the surgery was completed. We're all here with you, and you're doing very well. Can you hear my voice?" said Dr. Torres, as she adjusted the monitors and observed his responses. Ethan turned his head slightly towards her voice, but it was Emma who caught his attention. She held his hand firmly, her eyes filled with tears, as she smiled at him. "Ethan, I knew you could do it. You promised you wouldn't leave us, and here you are. We're all so proud of you." Ethan looked at her, still trying to process everything. His voice came out hoarse and weak, but clear enough for everyone to hear. "Emma, you're here. I'm here. Is this real?" He blinked, confused, but her touch seemed to anchor him to reality. Michael, who was watching the scene, felt a tightness in his chest. Something in Ethan's gaze seemed different, as if he were seeing the world from a new perspective. "Ethan, it's real. You made it. You're back and we're all here for you," said Michael, trying to contain the emotion in his voice. Dr. Torres began the first tests, evaluating reflexes and motor responses. As she performed the exams, she spoke to Ethan in an encouraging tone. "Ethan, I'm going to touch your arms and legs to check your response. Let me know if you feel anything different or strange, okay?" Ethan nodded slightly, still adjusting to the situation. He followed the instructions, but kept a serious expression, as if something was bothering him. "Dr. Torres, I feel different. I don't know how to explain it, but it seems like something has changed. It's like I'm trying to find my balance." Emma didn't let go of his hand, watching every move with attention. "Ethan, whatever has changed, you're still you. And we're here to help you no matter what happens. Just don't give up because you mean so much to all of us." Michael realized his brother still seemed confused and decided to intervene. He approached the bed, putting his hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Ethan, you don't need to try to understand everything right now. We'll take it one step at a time. The important thing is that you're here and we have time to figure out what has changed." Martha entered the room at that moment, bringing a vase of fresh flowers and a warm smile. She placed the vase on the table beside the bed and looked at Ethan with visible relief. "Don Ethan, it's good to see you awake. We were all waiting for this moment. And now that it's here, I want you to know that you have a house full of people who care about you." Ethan tried to smile, but his expression still carried traces of doubt. He looked at Michael as if searching for answers. "Michael, what if something is different in a way I can't understand? What if I can't go back to how I was before?" Michael held his brother's hand tightly, his voice firm but full of compassion. "Ethan, you don't need to go back to who you were before. You've already changed so much, and all of it has been for the better. The important thing is that you're here, and we have time to figure out what comes next." After Dr. Torres finished the initial exams, Ethan seemed more alert, but there was still something in his expression that indicated he was trying to process something bigger. He looked around the room as if he was searching for something, before finally fixing his eyes on Michael. His voice was clearer, but carried a tone of hesitation. "Michael, can you turn on the lights? I need to see." "I need to know if something has changed," said Ethan, his voice firm but filled with emotion. The tension in the room was palpable as everyone awaited Michael's response. He hesitated for a moment, but then got up, walking to the switch with firm steps. He looked at Dr. Torres, who nodded slightly, before finally pressing the switch, flooding the room with light. Everyone seemed to hold their breath as they awaited Ethan's reaction, the anticipation in the air making every second feel longer. The light flooded the room as Michael flipped the switch, casting soft glows on the walls and revealing every detail of the environment. All eyes were fixed on Ethan, who was still lying in bed, his eyes slightly open. He blinked slowly, as if trying to process what he saw or felt. Emma squeezed his hand tightly, anxious, while Michael remained motionless near the switch, holding his breath. The moment seemed suspended in time. Ethan nodded slightly, frowning as if something was bothering or intriguing him. "I feel something," he murmured, his voice hoarse but charged with anticipation. He blinked again, turning his face toward the light. "There are shadows. I don't know what it is, but something has changed." Emma gave a small sigh of relief, her eyes shining with a mixture of joy and hope. "Ethan, this is a beginning. You're perceiving something. That means everything, Doctor." "Torres did his working, isn't it? You're going to make it." Her voice was filled with emotion, and she couldn't contain the smile forming on her face. Michael approached the bed, running his hand through his hair, trying to maintain his composure. But he felt his eyes burning, and a solitary tear rolled down his cheek. "Ethan, do you realize what this means? It's more than we hoped for. It's the start of something new. You're not just coming back. You're going beyond what any of us imagined." Dr. Torres moved closer, checking Ethan's eyes with her medical penlight, her movements precise and careful. "Ethan, this is a good sign. Your perception of light and shadows is returning. Now we need to be patient. Progress may be slow, but every step matters," she said, her voice steady but gentle. Ethan blinked again, his eyes fixed on a vague point on the wall in front of him. He seemed focused, as if trying to decipher what he was seeing. "It's strange, it's not clear, but it's not the void from before. There's something. I'm trying to understand what it is," he said, with a tone of guarded hope. Emma stood up, momentarily releasing his hand to go to the piano in the corner of the room. She sat carefully on the bench, her fingers resting softly on the keys. "Ethan, I want to play something for you. It's the piece I prepared before your surgery. I want you to feel this even if you can't see everything yet," she said, as she began to play a delicate, emotion-filled melody. The sound filled the room, echoing softly through the walls. Ethan turned his head towards the music, closing his eyes for a moment, as if he wanted to absorb every note. "Emma, this is beautiful. It's like the notes are painting images in my mind." "I can't explain, but it makes me feel alive," he said, his voice trembling but sincere. Michael sat down beside his brother, holding his hand firmly. "Ethan, you are alive, and now you have something to fight for. This music, this feeling. This is just the beginning. No matter how long it takes, we'll be by your side every step of the way," Michael said, his voice choking with emotion. Martha entered the room at that moment, carrying a small wooden box. She placed the box on the table beside the bed and began taking out old photos of the brothers, placing them in front of Ethan. "Don Ethan, I brought something that might help you remember what you're capable of. These photos show you and Don Michael when you were children. They may not make sense now, but one day they will," she said, as she arranged the images. Ethan slowly reached out, touching one of the photos with his fingers, as if he wanted to feel its essence. He took a deep breath, trying to control the emotion that was starting to build inside him. "I can't see clearly, but I feel something when I touch this. It's like a piece of who I was, maybe. Maybe I can find that again," he said, his voice laden with a mixture of hope and melancholy. Emma continued playing the piano, and the melody seemed to grow in intensity, as if reflecting the emotion that filled the room. She looked at Ethan, her eyes shining with joy. "Ethan, every note of this music is for you. I want you to know that we're all here rooting for you. You're not alone, and you never will be again." Michael looked at Emma, feeling a deep gratitude for her presence in their lives. He turned to Ethan, holding his brother's hand again. "Ethan, Emma is right. We're a family now, and that means you'll never have to face anything alone. We're here for you every step of the way." Meanwhile, Dr. Torres was making notes on her clipboard, carefully observing every reaction from Ethan. She looked at Michael and Martha, smiling slightly. "Ethan is responding better than we expected, but we need to continue with caution. This is just the beginning, and there's still a long road ahead." Ethan blinked again, his gaze fixed ahead as if he were trying to focus on something only he could see. He frowned, concentrating intently. "There's something. It's like there's something more. I can't explain it, but it's like it's starting to make sense," he said, his voice low but full of intensity. The room was completely silent, except for the soft sound of the piano. Michael, Emma, Martha, and Dr. Torres watched Ethan closely, each holding their breath as he continued to blink, his eyes fixed on an invisible point. It was a moment filled with anticipation, the kind of moment that marked the beginning of something they all knew would change their lives forever. The tension from the earlier moment was starting to dissipate, replaced by a wave of expectation and hope. Ethan remained in bed, still blinking slowly, his gaze fixed ahead, as if trying to unravel something new. Emma continued playing the piano, the soft melody filling the room with an air of tranquility and determination. Michael, Martha, and Dr. Torres watched every move Ethan made, knowing that his progress, no matter how small, was a significant step. Suddenly, Ethan tilted his head slightly, frowning as he pointed towards the window. "There's something there. It's like a glimmer. I don't know what it is, but it looks orange. Is that it? Can I see a color?" His voice was full of hesitation, but it also carried a spark of hope. Michael quickly moved closer, his heart racing with the possibility. He placed a hand on his brother's shoulder, leaning in to be on the same line of sight, Ethan, can you make out anything? If it's orange, it's the sunlight coming through the curtains. That's incredible. You're starting to see more than just shadows. Emma stopped playing for a moment, her hands resting softly on the keys as she looked at Ethan with shining eyes. Ethan, that's so beautiful. If you can see the orange, maybe you'll be able to see other colors soon. It's like the world is coming back to you, one piece at a time. Dr. Torres stepped closer to check Ethan's eyes again, adjusting the light from her pen light to observe the reactions. Ethan, this is significant progress. Your perception of color indicates that the optic nerve is starting to respond. With time and rehabilitation, I believe you'll see even more. But we need to continue with patience, she said as she made quick notes. Later, as Ethan rested, Emma decided it was time to bring more life into the room. She took out some colored ribbons she had kept in her backpack and began hanging them on the walls and headboard of the bed. Michael entered the room and paused for a moment, watching her dedication. Emma, what are you doing? This seems very special, he said with a smile. Emma turned, holding a blue ribbon in her hands. Michael, I want Ethan to see a room full of colors when he starts to see better. I want him to feel like there's life around him, something that will make him want to keep going. He deserves that, she said, her voice laden with emotion and care. Michael moved closer to her, taking a green ribbon and helping her hang it in a corner. Emma, you're amazing. Ethan has no idea how much you're helping in his recovery. He's going to see this, and he's going to know that every detail came from you. Meanwhile, Ethan, who was in a brief moment of solitude in the room, began to explore with his hands a score left on the nightstand. He opened it carefully, his fingers sliding over the printed lines and notes, trying to decipher the familiar symbols. He frowned, bringing the paper closer to his face. I can't read everything, but some marks look familiar. Will I ever be able to play again? He murmured to himself. Michael came in and saw his brother holding the score, his expression a mixture of frustration and determination. He sat down beside Ethan and put his hand on his shoulder. Ethan, the fact that you're trying already says a lot. No matter how long it takes, you'll get there. The music is still in you, and that's what matters. Ethan turned his face towards Michael, a shy smile appearing on his lips. Michael, I know it's still early, but just the fact that I can see a little bit more is like I'm coming back to something I thought I had lost forever. Thank you for not giving up on me. As the afternoon turned into evening, Dr. Torres returned to the room to share the latest updates on Ethan's recovery. She sat down beside him, looking directly at him with an encouraging expression. Ethan, I want you to know that the signs are promising. Your vision will continue to improve, but we need to keep up with the exercises and maintain realistic expectations. It's a process, but I'm confident. Ethan nodded slowly, holding her words like an anchor. Dr. Torres, just being able to distinguish colors is a gift I never imagined receiving. If this is only the beginning, I'm willing to do whatever it takes to keep going, he said, his voice full of determination. Martha, who had brought a snack for Emma and Michael, sat down in the armchair beside them and looked at Ethan with a proud smile. Don, Ethan, your strength inspires us all, and with this family by your side, there is nothing you cannot achieve. You're coming back, and it's a miracle for all of us. Ethan looked around the room, now decorated with Emma's colorful ribbons. He smiled, even if it was still a shy smile. Emma, this is incredible. I can't see everything clearly, but the colors, they seem to dance around me. Thank you for bringing this to me, he said, his voice filled with gratitude. Emma, sitting at the piano, began playing the music she had composed for Ethan again, but this time with more emotion, as if each note carried a piece of the progress he had made. She looked at him as she played, and her voice softly interrupted the melody. Ethan, this music will always be yours, because you taught me that even in the shadows, we can find color and light. Michael looked at Emma, then at Ethan, feeling his heart warm with the bond they had built. He placed his hand on Ethan's shoulder again, a gesture that now seemed natural between the two of them. Ethan, you're showing us that nothing is impossible, and with every step you take, we're all here cheering you on. Then Ethan lifted his head, his expression more focused than before. He blinked a few times, adjusting his eyes to the light of the room before turning to Michael. Michael, may I ask you something? I want to see the sunset in the greenhouse. I think I'm ready for that, he said, his voice steady but laden with emotion. Ethan's request filled the room with a reverent silence, everyone aware of the significance of that moment. Michael nodded, holding his brother's hand as Emma continued playing in the background, the melody becoming the perfect soundtrack for the moment of hope they all knew was to come. Ethan turned his face towards Michael, blinking several times as if trying to focus. He slowly raised his hand, bringing it closer to his brother's face. "Michael, I can see the outlines. Your face. It's not clear, but it's there. It's you." "It's real," said Ethan, his voice choked with emotion. Michael couldn't hold back the tears streaming down his face. He held Ethan's hand, squeezing it tightly. "Ethan, you have no idea what this means to me. Seeing you like this, recognizing things around you, it's all I could ever dream of. We're in this together, always." As Emma continued playing, Ethan leaned slightly back in his chair, closing his eyes for a moment before opening them again. He seemed more relaxed, more at peace than he had ever been. He looked in Emma's direction, a different glint in his gaze. "Emma, can you stop playing for a moment? I need to tell you something," said Ethan, his voice soft but full of intensity. Emma immediately stopped, turning to face him with curiosity. Ethan leaned slightly forward, beckoning her closer, and whispered something in her ear. Emma's smile faded for a moment, replaced by an expression of surprise. She looked at Ethan, trying to understand what he had just said. The silence that followed was filled with expectation, everyone in the room awaiting the next move, as if that whisper were the beginning of something that would change everything. The greenhouse room was silent after Ethan's whisper into Emma's ear. The girl stared at him, her eyes wide with surprise as she processed the words he had just spoken. Michael, sitting next to his brother, noticed the change in Emma's expression and frowned in confusion. He leaned slightly forward, as if trying to catch a hint of what had been said. The setting sun cast soft colors on the glass walls, illuminating the moment with an almost magical serenity. Emma took a step back, still holding Ethan's hand, before finally finding the courage to speak. "Michael, Ethan just asked me something. Something I never expected," she began, her voice low but full of emotion. She took a deep breath, holding back the tears that threatened to fall. "He asked to be my adoption godfather. He wants to be an official part of this." Michael stood motionless for a moment, the words hanging in the air as he tried to comprehend them. He looked at Ethan, who was sitting with a small smile on his lips, the expression serene but determined. Michael felt his chest tighten, emotions taking over him. "Ethan, you want to be her godfather. It means more than you can imagine. It's a commitment. It's saying that you'll be by her side every step of the way. Are you sure about this?" Ethan nodded slowly, turning his face towards Michael, his eyes focused like never before. "Michael, I've never been surer of anything in my entire life. Emma gave me a second chance, not just to see the world again, but to be a part of something greater. I want to be there for her, no matter what happens." Emma couldn't hold back her tears any longer and threw her arms around Ethan, hugging him tightly. "Ethan, this means so much to me. You're like an angel in my life. I never thought I'd have a real family, but now I know I do. Thank you for believing in me," she said, her voice muffled by the embrace. Martha, who had silently entered the greenhouse, stood for a moment, watching the scene with a smile on her lips. She slowly approached, adjusting the soft lights illuminating the space. "Don, Ethan, you've finally found your place. It's not just about seeing the world again. It's about being a part of it. And I think Emma will be your greatest inspiration," she said as she organized the space. Later, as they all gathered at the hospital for a final consultation with Dr. Torres, the doctor entered with a wide smile, carrying Ethan's latest test results. She sat down in front of them, looking at Ethan with an expression of pride. "Don, Ethan, your recovery has surpassed all expectations. Your vision is returning consistently, but what impresses me the most is the change in you as a person. It's not just a physical cure, it's an emotional one," she said, handing over the reports. Ethan looked at Dr. Torres, his eyes shining with gratitude. "Doctor, I don't know if I'll ever be able to thank you enough. Not just for helping me regain my sight, but for showing me that there was still something worth fighting for. That changed everything for me." Michael squeezed Ethan's shoulder, his voice full of emotion. "Dr. Torres, What you've done here is more than medicine. You've brought my brother back to me, and you've brought a new purpose into our lives. There are no words to describe how grateful we are." Back in the greenhouse, Martha had begun transforming the space into a music room, something Ethan had suggested. The walls were decorated with sheet music and old photographs of famous musicians, and a grand piano was placed in one corner, shining under the soft glow of hanging lamps. Emma ran around the space, excited, as Ethan watched her with a genuine smile. "Ethan, do you think one day I'll be good enough to play in a place like this, for other people?" "I want my music to make someone feel what you felt that night," Emma said, her voice filled with enthusiasm. Ethan laughed lightly, a sound Michael hadn't heard in years. "Emma, your music is already powerful. It's not about playing for many people, but for the ones who matter. And every time you play, you remind me that there is beauty in the world." Michael watched the interaction between the two, his chest filled with pride and joy. He knew Ethan was truly healed, not just from blindness, but from the bitterness that had consumed him for so long. "Ethan, you're a new man. And seeing you so connected to the world again is the greatest victory of all," Michael thought, as a slight smile appeared on his face. Finally, the day of the adoption ceremony arrived. The room was filled with flowers and natural light, with Emma seated at the piano, nervously adjusting herself as she waited to begin. Michael was by Ethan's side, who was now wearing an elegant suit, his eyes shining with emotion. Martha was in the back, organizing the final details, but observing everything with a fond look. Emma began to play, her hands gliding across the keys with precision and passion. The melody filled the room, echoing with a beauty that left everyone in silence. Ethan, seated in the front row, stared at her, blinking a few times before realizing something that left him speechless. He could clearly see Emma's smile as she played. Michael looked at Ethan and noticed the expression on his brother's face. He held Ethan's hand, squeezing it tightly as tears streamed down his face. "Ethan, you made it. You're seeing this, and you're feeling everything it means. I'm so proud of you," Michael said, his voice choked with emotion. When Emma finished playing, Ethan was the first to stand, applauding enthusiastically, the widest smile he had ever shown. He turned to Michael, his eyes shining with tears, and said something Michael would never forget. "Michael, this isn't just the family I found. It's the family I always dreamed of having. Thank you for never giving up on me." Michael couldn't hold back his tears as he embraced his brother, feeling that this moment was the culmination of everything they had been through together. Emma's music continued to echo in their minds, a reminder that even in the most difficult circumstances, love and hope would always find a way. The music still echoed in everyone's mind as they left the adoption ceremony. Michael watched Ethan and Emma, now united not only by affection, but also by official ties as godfather and goddaughter. A week had passed since that special moment, and the mansion seemed more alive than ever. Today is the day we'll find out if Ethan can improve even further, if there's any chance of fully recovering his vision. I should be more confident after everything we've been through, but I can't help this tightness in my chest, this fear that the news won't be what we hope for. Ethan deserves so much to see the world completely again, thought Michael, adjusting his tie for the third time. At the hospital, Ethan sat in the exam chair, his hands gripping the arms of the seat as Dr. Torres prepared the equipment. Emma held Michael's hand tightly, the two of them watching every move the doctor made. The silence was heavy, laden with expectation. "Dr. Torres, you don't need to be afraid to tell me the truth. I've spent so much time in the dark that any light, no matter how small, is already a blessing. But I need to know exactly where I stand. I need to understand if this is my limit or if there's still a path ahead. Emma and Michael deserve to know too, because they're my family now, and families face the truth together," said Ethan, his voice firm despite the tremor in his hands. Dr. Torres finished the exams and sat in front of Ethan, her face serious but gentle. The results were in her hands, and the weight of that moment was palpable in the air of the office. "Ethan, you've achieved something extraordinary. Your vision is at 60%, a result that few patients achieve after so much time of complete blindness. You can see colors, shapes, and that alone is a medical miracle. But I need to be honest with you. It's unlikely that your vision will improve beyond this point. The optic nerve has given all it could, and we should celebrate this victory instead of lamenting what we can't achieve," explained Torres, maintaining eye contact with Ethan as she shared the news. Emma approached Ethan, her small hands finding his in the dark. The hospital piano, visible through the office window, seemed to call out to her. "Ethan, you taught me that music doesn't need to be perfect to touch people's hearts. It's like your vision now. It may not be complete, but it's more than enough to create something beautiful. When I play the piano, I don't think about the notes I can't reach. I think about the melody I can create with the ones I have. You showed me that, and now it's my turn to remind you," Emma said, her words laden with wisdom beyond her years. Michael watched the scene, his heart overflowing with pride and love. He approached his brother, placing a firm, comforting hand on his shoulder. "Ethan, you've already overcome every limitation the world tried to impose on you. 60% vision? That's 60% more than we had a few months ago. And look at everything you can already see. Emma's smile, the colors of the sunset, the greenhouse flowers. You're not losing 40%. You've gained a new life," Michael said, his voice thick with emotion. Back at the mansion, Martha awaited anxiously in the greenhouse, where she had prepared a surprise that would change the course of their lives. The space was transformed, new musical instruments arranged in a semicircle, scores carefully set up on stands, and small colored chairs scattered around the environment. "Don Ethan, Don Michael, Emma, come see what I've prepared. This place won't be just our private greenhouse anymore. I have a dream and I need to share it with you. Throughout all these years caring for this house, I realized it's too big to keep so much happiness just for us," Martha called out, her voice trembling with anticipation. Ethan entered the greenhouse, his eyes catching the changes even with his limited vision. The vibrant colors of the chairs were like small beacons guiding his gaze. Emma ran to the new piano, her hands gliding over the polished surface. "Martha, you turned this into a music school. It's incredible. I can see the potential. I can imagine other children here learning to play, discovering the same joy I found in music. It's like this place was meant for this all along," Emma exclaimed, her eyes sparkling with possibilities. Martha smiled, moved by Emma's reaction. She walked through the space, touching each instrument with affection. "I want to open the doors of this house to other children, especially those who, like you, Emma, need a place to belong. We can offer free music lessons to orphans, create a space where music heals other souls, like it healed our family. Don Ethan, your story with Emma inspired me to do something bigger, something that can touch other lives," Martha revealed, her words laden with purpose and hope. Ethan walked to one of the stands, where Martha had placed old family photos. Even with his limited vision, he could distinguish the smiles in the images, the memories preserved on paper. "Michael, look at these photos. I remember this day, even if I can't see all the details. It was our father's birthday, and he insisted on playing that old out-of-tune guitar. Now I can see a little of the faces, the colors. It's like regaining pieces of my story," Ethan shared, his voice thick with the emotion of memories. Michael stepped closer, picking up one of the photos. The captured moment was precious, the two brothers as children sitting at the piano in their old house. "Ethan, I remember that day like it was yesterday. You were determined to learn that difficult song, and you spent hours practicing until you got it. That determination, that strength, you never lost that. You just needed to rediscover it," Michael said, running his finger over the surface of the photograph with affection. Emma sat at the piano, her hands finding the keys with ease. The melody she began to play was different from anything they had ever heard. A perfect blend of the songs her mother used to play with new elements created by herself. "This music is for our family. It has a bit of my mother in it, because she'll always be in my heart, but it also has you. Ethan's strength, Michael's love, Martha's dedication. It's a song about new beginnings and how love can create something new from broken pieces," Emma explained as her hands danced across the keys. Martha approached the group, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. The moment was perfect for her final announcement. "I've decided I'm going to start a volunteer program at the orphanage. I want to be the bridge between the children there and this space we've created here." Emma showed us how much potential there is in that place, how many dreams just need a chance to blossom. "Don Ethan, your journey taught me it's never too late to change a life," Martha revealed, her voice laden with determination. Ethan rose, walking over to Martha with steady steps, despite his limited vision. "Martha, you've always been more than a housekeeper to this family. You are a part of it, and now you're expanding this family to include more people who need help. I may not be able to see your face clearly, but I can see your heart perfectly," Ethan said, opening his arms to embrace her. Michael watched the scene, his heart overflowing with gratitude. The mansion, once a place of isolation and sadness, now pulsed with life and purpose. "We started this journey trying to save Ethan, but in the end, we all got saved. Emma brought us music. Ethan taught us about courage. Martha showed us the power of dedication. And now we're going to share all of that with others who need hope," Michael reflected, his voice laden with emotion. Emma played a new melody, softer and more hopeful. The sound filled the greenhouse like a promise of better days. "This music is different from what my mother used to play, but I know she would be proud. Because it's not just about playing the right notes, it's about playing from the heart. And our hearts are so full now, so ready to share everything we have," said Emma, her words echoing through the transformed greenhouse. Martha adjusted one last score on the stand, her face lit by the afternoon sun streaming in through the greenhouse windows. "Tomorrow we begin a new phase. The children from the orphanage will come for their first lesson, and this house will finally fulfill its true purpose, to be a home for those in need of love, music, and hope. It doesn't matter if the vision is perfect or not. What matters is that our hearts can clearly see the way forward," declared Martha, sealing the moment with words that carried the weight of a new promise. A month had passed since Martha transformed the greenhouse into a music school. The afternoon lessons with the children from the orphanage filled the mansion with life and melodies, but Emma felt there was still something incomplete, a bridge that needed to be built. Standing in front of the piano, her fingers caressed the keys as her mind wandered to the place she once called home. "I need to go back to the orphanage, not just as a visitor, but as someone who can offer hope. When I ran away from that place, I was looking for a dream, and now that I've found it, I can't just ignore those I left behind. There are so many girls there who could discover in music the same comfort I found," thought Emma, her determination growing with every note she played. Emma found Michael and Ethan in the library, where the brothers were examining old scores for the lessons. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows, casting dancing shadows across the bookshelves. Her hands trembled slightly as she gathered courage to make her request. "Michael, Ethan, I need to go back to the orphanage, not as the scared girl who ran away, but as someone who has found her way. I know it may seem difficult, but I feel there are more children there who need what we can offer. When I lived there, music was just a distant dream. Now we can make it a reality for others," said Emma, her voice firm despite the fear that still lingered in her memories. The drive to the orphanage was silent, each turn in the road bringing more nervousness to Emma. Ethan held her hand tightly in the back seat of the car, while Michael drove carefully along the familiar streets. The grey building loomed ahead, exactly as Emma remembered, but now she saw it with different eyes. "I never thought I'd come back here feeling anything but fear. It's strange how the same place can seem so different when our heart has changed. Every window in this building holds stories of loneliness, but now we can fill them with music," murmured Emma, gripping Ethan's hand tighter. The entry into the orphanage was a moment of palpable tension. The peeling walls and the smell of cheap food brought back memories that Emma struggled to keep under control. In the courtyard, some girls played, their voices echoing through the empty corridors. One of them, Anna, Emma's former roommate, stopped in her tracks upon recognizing her. "Emma, is that really you? I thought I'd never see you again after you ran away. Some of us thought you'd managed to find a family. Others, well, we feared the worst, seeing you here so different, so strong. It's like a dream come true for all of us," exclaimed Anna, running to hug the friend she thought she'd lost. During the visit to the facilities, Emma discovered that several girls had developed an interest in music, even without proper instruments. In a corner of the dining hall, they improvised melodies by beating on old cans and singing songs they learned on the radio. "Michael, Ethan, are you seeing how music finds its way even in the most unlikely places? These girls have so much talent, so much passion kept inside. Imagine what they could do with real instruments, with someone to guide them," observed Emma, her eyes glistening with tears of emotion and determination. Back at the mansion, Emma gathered everyone in the greenhouse-turned music room. Her heart raced as she shared her idea. We can do more than just regular classes. I want to organize a benefit concert, something that shows the world the talent of these children. It wouldn't just be a performance, it would be a statement that dreams can come true, no matter where you come from. We could use the money raised to expand the project, reach more children, Emma proposed, her voice trembling with emotion as she envisioned the possibilities. Ethan, who was sitting at the piano, stood up with determination. His eyes, even with limited vision, shone with purpose. I may not see perfectly, but I can teach. Music doesn't need perfect eyes to be felt, and I want to share that with these children. Emma taught me that sometimes we just need someone who believes in us. Now it's our turn to be that person for others, Ethan offered, his voice laden with emotion and certainty. Michael immediately began making plans, his business mind working at full speed. He paced the room, gesturing as he organized his ideas. We can adapt the mansion to accommodate more children, organize transportation from the orphanage here. Martha can coordinate the schedules, and I can handle the financial and logistical side. This isn't just a dream, it's a project that can change lives, Michael declared, his enthusiasm infecting everyone around him. Martha took on her role with the efficiency that was characteristic of her, transforming the greenhouse into an even more welcoming space. She organized scores, adjusted schedules, and tended to every detail with motherly love. This place has always been special, but now it has an even greater purpose. It's not just a music room, it's a place where dreams take flight. Every child who enters here needs to feel like they belong, that they matter, Martha affirmed as she arranged the last chairs for the rehearsal. The rehearsals for the benefit concert began, filling the mansion with music from dawn to dusk. Emma worked tirelessly with the children from the orphanage, her patience and dedication inspiring each of them to give their best. You're not just students, you're artists in the making. Every note you play is a step towards your dreams. It doesn't matter how many times we need to repeat. What matters is the music that exists within you, Emma encouraged, her own love for music reflecting in her students' eyes. On the night of the concert, the greenhouse was transformed into a true auditorium. Soft lights illuminated the space, and the scent of flowers mingled with the anticipation in the air. Ethan sat in the front row, his eyes capturing enough to distinguish the shapes and colors of the environment he had helped create. Even with my limited vision, I can clearly see the miracle that happened here. It's not just musical notes filling this space, it's dreams coming alive, Ethan reflected, moved by the transformation he witnessed. Emma opened the concert with a performance that blended her mother's music with her own compositions. Her hands danced across the keys with confidence and love, telling her story through the notes. One by one, the children from the orphanage joined her, each contributing their own talent to create a symphony of hope. This music isn't just mine, it's ours. It's the story of every child who dreamed of something bigger, of every person who believed that music could heal broken hearts, Emma announced, her voice laden with emotion as the final notes echoed through the room. Michael chose that moment to make his announcement, rising before the emotional audience. His voice was steady but charged with restrained emotion. Today marks not just the end of a concert, but the beginning of something much greater. I'm announcing the creation of the Carter Foundation for Arts and Education. Our goal is to bring music and hope to children in orphanages across the country, because every child deserves a chance to discover the music in their heart, Michael declared, prompting a wave of applause and tears from the audience. Martha, who had been watching with motherly pride, took to the makeshift stage. Her face shone with determination and joy. As project director, I promise to dedicate every day to expanding this dream. Music has transformed this house, healed hearts, and united people who seemed lost. Now we'll take that same transformation to other places, other lives that need hope, Martha announced, her firm and emotional voice echoing through the greenhouse. The concert ended with a joint performance of all the children, including Emma on the piano. The music they created together was more than a melody. It was a promise of the future, a testimony of transformation. Ethan, even with his limited vision, could clearly see the miracle happening before him. This is our true vision, the one that sees with the heart. It doesn't matter what we lack. It matters what we can create together. Emma taught us that, and now we'll teach the world, thought Ethan, as the last notes of the night floated in the air like stars of hope. The sun was setting on the Carter mansion, But unlike the days of silence in the past, the music still echoed through the halls. Ethan was in his new classroom, organizing embossed scores he had developed himself to teach other visually impaired students. His fingers slid over the marked dots on the paper, a system that blended Braille with musical notes. Music always finds its way no matter what our limitations are. Each student who enters through that door teaches me a new way to envision the melody, and together we are creating something that goes beyond perfect vision, reflected Ethan as he set up his classroom for the next day. In the main greenhouse, Emma was finishing a class with Mariana, one of the first students from the orphanage. The girl who could barely play a note 6 months ago was now preparing for her first solo performance. Michael watched from afar, his heart overflowing with pride at how the project had blossomed. Sometimes I think about your mother, Emma, how happy she would be to see that your music not only survived, but multiplied into so many other lives. You turned your loss into a gift for others, and that's the highest form of honoring her memory, said Michael, approaching the piano where Emma and her student were practicing. Martha passed through the door carrying new uniforms for the children's choir, her face illuminated by the satisfaction of seeing the mansion so full of life. The walls that once held sadness now vibrated with laughter and melodies. Who would have thought that the scared little girl we found in the greenhouse would change not only our lives, but the lives of so many other children? Every corner of this house now has a story of transformation to tell, thought Martha, as she hung the little uniforms, each one representing a new dream in formation, a new life touched by the music that began with a single note of hope. If this story moved you, leave your like. Your interaction is very important to keep bringing inspiring content. And stay tuned, because the next exciting story is about to appear on your screen.